wrestling fans, how you doing? Welcome to the next era in pro wrestling analysis. Welcome to Next Era Wrestling Radio. I'm Tommy Sharp alongside Graham GSM Matthews, here to bring you the front-to-end WWE wrestling coverage that you deserve. Listen online at nexterawrestling.net. Graham, we are just 2 days away from Clash of Champions, a Raw-branded showcase, and every Raw title is on the line. In the main event, we have Charlotte defending her WWE Women's Championship in a triple threat match against Bayley and Sasha Banks, as well as Kevin Owens defending his Universal title against the Scourge known as Seth Rollins. Graham, let's kick things off with our current Women's Champion, Charlotte. How did we end up here in a triple threat?
Well, first and foremost, Tommy, great to see you. Great to be back here on Next Era Wrestling Radio. But to start off the show, as you're talking about, the main event, in my mind, the main event of Sunday's show, Clash of Champions for the Women's Championship, the Raw Women's Championship, I should specify. Charlotte, Sasha Banks, Bayley, three of my favorite women in this company right now. They're going to be killing it. They're going to be ripping it up in the middle of the ring on Sunday. It's been a whirlwind. I mean, ever since we last saw each other a couple months ago, Bayley has been called up to Monday Night Raw. Sasha Banks has had her crowning moment as the Raw Women's Champion, and Charlotte, for the past 365 days plus, has been killing it on top of the Raw Women's division as the Raw Women's Champion. And now they all collide in a blockbuster triple threat match for the ages on Sunday. And I can't wait for it. And I can't wait to hear what your prediction is, because I have no idea who walks out on Sunday as the Raw Women's Champion.
Well, let's talk a little bit about how we got this match in the first place. I don't think we have any three of the women to thank for creating this match. We have one Dana Brooke to thank for suggesting to Mick Foley backstage on Raw that perhaps the best scenario possible would be to involve Bayley in the match, which I found interesting. What are your thoughts?
I would say so, too. The interesting thing is that she is not... really, our Raw Women's division is for women. It's Dana Brooke. I mean, we have Nia Jackson, which we'll get to soon enough. But it's Bayley, Dana Brooke, Sasha, and Charlotte.
Those are the contenders.
Exactly. They're the contenders. And Dana Brooke is the only woman that is not involved in this match. And like you said, we really have Dana Brooke to thank for pointing out the fact that the week prior on Monday Night Raw, the number one contender's triple threat ended in a draw with the shoulders of both Bayley and Banks down on the mat. So now it's a triple threat. Although she is not officially involved in Sunday's match, I do expect her to get involved in some form or fashion. She's had these tensions teased between her and Charlotte. She has obvious issues between her, Bayley, and Banks, so it's going to be interesting come Sunday.
She's constantly put down, but constantly putting herself in the middle of everything.
Always.
And that's to be noted, because Dana Brooke is a snake in the grass at the end of the day. And because we now have this triple threat, and she's not officially banned from ringside in any capacity, I have to agree with you that we should expect some foul play from Charlotte's side of the camp.
I think so, yeah.
Gives her an unfortunate advantage, but I also don't find Dana to be as stealthy in her ways as Maurice perhaps can be. But she got pegged this week as well, so we'll see. But they faced off on Raw this week in a tag team match. Sasha and Bayley teamed up against Charlotte and Dana. We've seen this before. We've seen this type of pairing before. This match, though, I saw a little bit more frustration between Banks and Bayley. What did you see on their side of the camp?
I mean, they have history together. I mean, you can't ignore the fact that although they're best friends, we saw them put their differences aside at Battleground Monday's Raw. They came up short on Monday's Raw against Charlotte and Dana Brooke in tag team action, but it was almost exactly a year ago at TakeOver Respect. They faced off in the first ever Iron Woman match at NXT TakeOver Respect for the NXT Women's Championship. So they have that history there. They put that aside recently in sharing a common goal in dethroning Charlotte as the queen bee of Raw Women's division. But like you said, it's every woman for herself on Sunday. It's not a 2-on-1 handicap match. It's Sasha versus Bayley versus Charlotte. So it's a three-way dance, and any one of these women can walk out with the title come Sunday. So I really think it's an interesting dynamic that the tension teased between Charlotte, or rather Bayley and Banks, it's been interesting. I think we'll see tensions flare in the coming weeks as well.
Yeah. Now, could we see? I could also see Charlotte having a distraction caused by Dana that costs Charlotte the match, and therefore Charlotte will then blame Dana, and because it's a triple threat match and she doesn't need to be pinned to lose. You know, there is some question as to whether or not Dana has been proved to be distracting in of herself to Charlotte in the past, and perhaps that works against them. So even the best laid plans with Dana involved has known to go awry.
Well, you say that as an unintentional thing. I think it could also be the case where Dana intentionally cost Charlotte the match. I mean,
she's playing the long game.
Exactly. I mean, in recent weeks, we've seen her take a lot of abuse at the hands of Charlotte. Back and forth. Every single week she gets abused verbally, sometimes physically. She got slapped across the face hard a few weeks ago on Raw. And she has yet to really stand up to the second-generation star, Charlotte. So maybe we see it when it matters most on Sunday. I mean, there is no stipulation that Dana Brooke cannot involve herself in the match.
She's certainly tough enough. I mean, she in the tag team match on Raw that they had. It was Sasha Banks and Dana Brooke squaring off to start that match, and it was as physical as anything else. And that match at Clash of Champions could have easily been a fatal four-way.
Very well could be. And I mean, technically it could be. There are no disqualifications in this match.
Dana is dangerously bordering on no longer being a rookie here. She's made enough mistakes and seen enough success and has associated herself with Charlotte for long enough that success rubs off. So she definitely has elevated herself to be right in the middle of everybody's business. And that's what makes this such an interesting match and an excellent main event, especially for everything that has built up between specifically Bayley and Sasha Banks. Now, when it comes down to it, Charlotte has put down enough people around her and made it known that she is in it for her own personal glory. So being that as it may, that doesn't appeal to me quite as the champion that I would want to see for the women's division. Now you have Sasha Banks, who has put in a lot of physical hard work and physical endurance to get to this point. And Bayley is stepping in fresh off of a healthy recovery from her injury, moving up to the roster, getting all of this momentum, the WWE Universe pushed behind her. I think that excitement is enough to get her to the main event, but is it enough to get her the win, to get her the belt right now?
That's really the question. I mean, you look at how long it took her to win the NXT Women's Championship. Two very different universes, two very different playing fields, NXT and the main roster. It took her well over 2 years before finally defeating Sasha Banks to take over Brooklyn last August to win that championship. We could see history repeat itself on Sunday. She could very well pin Banks again to not only win her first NXT Women's Championship, but rather her first main roster, her first major championship in the WWE, in the Raw Women's Championship. Like you said, the real question is, can she get it done when it matters most? It's not a matter of beating Banks, which she's already done 2 times before. It's a matter of beating both Banks and Charlotte in the same match, 2 women who she came up with. Fun fact for you, NXT 3.5 years ago, Charlotte's first ever NXT televised match was against Bayley. Bayley's first ever NXT televised match was against Charlotte. Their same match. They have that history there. All 3 of these women have amazing history in this business, which is why I'm so invested in this women's championship triple threat.
Makes it a main event upon layers upon layers. And what's interesting here as well, in the tag team match on Monday night, we saw Bayley eat a pin from Charlotte. And Sasha Banks definitely had an eye of resentment just to even come up with a loss, first of all, but to go into Clash of Champions almost on a downer. I think that's not how Sasha Banks, the boss, would like to go into this match, making sure that Charlotte doesn't feel on top of her game. Now Charlotte certainly is walking in with all the confidence and a dangerous Dana Brooke by her side.
Well, I mean, she needed this momentum boost. Charlotte more than anyone else. Bayley is riding out the momentum despite coming off a loss to Asuka take over Brooklyn. An excellent match, by the way. She is still the fan favorite in this match. Sasha Banks already has the people behind her. Charlotte has proven herself time and time again. Yet people still doubt her. People thought that she would come up short at SummerSlam versus Sasha in part 2 of their Classic series. She came out on top in clean fashion. No cheating, no nothing. She came out as a 2-time WWE Raw Women's Champion. And again, she has to overcome all 3 of these women have to overcome the odds. But I would say Charlotte needed that momentum on Monday more than anyone else in that match.
And I think that because of that momentum, I give the nod. My prediction is that Charlotte will retain at Clash of Champions. The Hail Mary would be for Sasha Banks to somehow steal the belt away. But based on the interaction I saw with her and Bayley, they're too competitive. Once they get locked in competitively like that, they can't ignore each other. It's like Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens. They just go at it and go at it and go at it. The consequences be damned. And that is what costs you championship. And that every time we've seen it before, and we will see it again. And speaking of champions, moving into the other main event that we are going to see at Clash of Champions, we have Kevin Owens will be taking on Seth Rollins for the Universal title, which is sure to be a classic matchup here. But this week, both Rollins and Owens seemed distracted with other things going on around them in the WWE Universe. What are your thoughts about not only Kevin Owens and Seth Rollins squaring off at Clash of Champions, two champions in their own right, but to have Rusev and Roman Reigns hot on each of their tails in different ways? What were your thoughts about what happened on Monday?
And they're currently feuding over the United States Championship, but the picture gets bigger than that, like you said, with Owens, Seth Rollins. It's a very crowded picture atop the Raw, food, pecking order right now, Monday Night Raw, between Roman Reigns, Rusev, Seth Rollins, Kevin Owens. But I also neglected to mention, too, it gets bigger than that. You have Mick Foley, you have Stephanie McMahon, two prominent Raw authority figures. You have Triple H as well, the X Factor, we have not seen since helping Kevin Owens win that WWE Universal Championship many weeks ago. Will he resurface in this match? But I think, as you said, the most important factors in this match coming up are Roman Reigns and Rusev. How are they going to respond? Do those guys both want, although their sights are set on the U.S. title, do they want that Universal Championship at the same time? It's a very crowded picture right now.
And who do we have to blame for this? Mick Foley. We have Mick Foley to blame for the current confusion amongst all of the top superstars as to who's fighting over what. Are they fighting over everything, or are they fighting over the chance for everything? It's yet to be seen, whether you look at Cesaro and Sheamus in their Best of 7 series, where the winner of that match will get a number one contenders match, or a title match at least, against the current champion at that time. You have Rusev and Roman Reigns going at each other's throats, and on top of it all, the cherry on top is the U.S. title is on the line for that. And then you have Kevin Owens and Seth Rollins, two champions going head-to-head, furious. Seth Rollins furious at Kevin Owens for the way that he obtained his title, in a similar way that Seth Rollins was given his own. And then you have Roman Reigns in a steel cage versus Kevin Owens in the main event. The cross-pollination of all of these superstars at each other's throats, going for any available titles they can get their hands on. It seems to be driven now more about their own personal vendettas against each other than it does about the belts. How do you feel about that?
That's what makes these feuds, both Roman Reigns and Rusev and Seth Rollins and Kevin Owens, that much more engaging. It's a lot more. I mean, it's kind of ironic. We have Sunday's show called Clash of Champions. In every match, most matches on the show will be about championship gold. But at the same time, it's also about personal rivalries, personal vendettas, bad blood between these four superstars. And because of that, you can feel like I said, that bad blood rating off all four of these guys. And because of that, I feel that much more engaged to see any one of these guys come out on top in the respective matches.
Now, you were mentioning Triple H and him as a potential X factor in all this. Now, we saw on Monday, Seth went into Stephanie McMahon's office to confront her again. I think this has got to be the third or fourth time to confront her about her involvement in the Universal Championship decision. And Stephanie, time and again, has reiterated that she had no involvement, no knowledge, and it certainly doesn't condone those types of actions, but now has to live with the consequences. Seth Rollins is promising to be her worst nightmare, the entire WWE's worst nightmare, if things do not start going his way. Do you find these to be empty threats from a desperate Seth Rollins?
It could go either way. That's a great question because we've seen him deliver in the past. Seth Rollins is a very dangerous man. You got to think about who we're dealing with right now. I know in the last couple of months he hasn't delivered exactly on his promises, coming up short to Dean Ambrose and Money in the Bank, dropping his second WWE World Championship, falling short at Battleground when he was really relied on as the top Raw guy to take that title back to the flagship show. He came up short at SummerSlam, falling to the rookie of Finn Balor in the first ever WWE Universal Championship match. The stakes are higher for Seth Rollins than anyone else you mentioned. Kevin Owens, Roman Reigns, Rusev. Seth Rollins, more than anyone else right now on Monday Night Raw, has something to prove. If he does not take home the gold on Sunday, although he has the credibility, he has the accolades, he's a former United States champion, tag team champion, two-time WWE World Champion, superstar of the year. But if he does not take home the Universal Championship on Sunday, I am certainly interested to see what's next for him because he's come up short so many times in recent months.
It's true, and he is now becoming a raw nerve. He's lashing out in a lot of different directions. Whether his focus happens to be on Rusev because that's what Mick Foley has determined for the night for him. Or his focus happens to be on Kevin Owens constantly getting under his skin. Or even just snide looks at Roman Reigns from across the ring. In dark matches against Roman Reigns, completely in the shadows, just to vent frustrations and things like that. Seth Rollins is starting to become an island unto himself. No friends. No, not even necessarily enemies. I think everybody is just at odds with Seth Rollins. So he's certainly done enough for his own reputation to put him in this place. But I don't think that necessarily gives him any advantage over current Universal Champion Kevin Owens. Kevin Owens has been nothing but a stoic, solid rock throughout his every moment since he acquired the Universal title. He has been every example of a champion that you would want him to be, almost to a frustrating degree because of how it was handed to him and how he didn't totally deserve it. But you know what? From everything that's been divulged so far, he didn't ask for that. But the opportunity was given to him, and you don't look a gift horse in the mouth and tell it to go away. So he has taken every advantage to be a proper champion, to point out that he's not unwilling to fight, but he wants things done in a logical way, and he is at odds with Mick Foley for choosing a completely emotionally irrational path for the design of the Universal title picture.
Well, we've seen ever since he started, not even since he won the Universal Championship last month, but even prior to that for the past 2 years, ever since he arrived, not only in WWE, but in NXT, Kevin Owens will take every out possible, from betraying his best friend to targeting the top dog John Cena to capturing the IC Championship on 2 separate occasions. Kevin Owens will do whatever it takes and whatever is necessary to take home the championship gold, to do what is right for his family. He's a prize fighter. He's going to do what he can to take home the food for his family, put food on his family's table and stuff like that. And as the Universal Champion, he has to deliver too. We talk a lot about Seth Rollins, but Kevin Owens also has something to prove in this match on Sunday, whether it be the main event, the co-main event next to the Women's Championship. It doesn't matter. Kevin Owens has to prove. He has to live up to that billing, and this being the Kevin Owens show.
And much like the New England Patriots right now, he only has to prove that he can pull out a win. To be honest, however he pulls out that win will be pale in comparison to the ways that Seth Rollins has pulled out snake victories in the past. So I can't honestly paint Kevin Owens as a villain in this role. He's not squeaky clean. He's far from being a babyface in any significant way. But for right now, there is nothing holding Kevin Owens back from achieving a win against a desperate Seth Rollins, who certainly needs this Universal title on his shoulder as validation that he is the threat to be beat in the WWE on the Raw side.
I think the theme in this match is really the lesser of two evils. Because like you said, both of these guys aren't the squeakiest clean good guys in the company. They're the exact opposite. They're polar opposites of one another, but also polar opposites of what you would expect from a conquering hero, such as a John Cena or a Dean Ambrose or a Finn Balor. These guys are everything but what you would not expect them to be in a top hero on Monday Night Raw. And that is really what interests me about this match. It's not your typical good guy versus bad guy, good versus evil. And when you have those kind of shades of gray, that can get confusing, but I feel like they've really maintained that steady line of finding different ways. Like, you might like Seth Rollins, I might like Kevin Owens, or vice versa. There really is no set, get-go guy to cheer for here. It really can go either way.
No, there's plenty of things on both sides of the table between Owens and Rollins to respect. And that, at the end of the day, they are incredible athletes at what they do. But when they are put against each other, you got to look at the skill sets. You got to look at the frame of mind, and you got to look at the past at least 3 weeks of what they have been through on the road together leading up until this point. And I have to say that Kevin Owens looks far more rested, looks far more poised and strong and healthy at this point to take on Rollins than he did even when he was in the Universal title match.
Absolutely. Absolutely. He is more determined. He is more hungry. He is more passionate now about getting that goal of winning back that Universal Championship, or technically for the first time, but getting back world title gold, period. Seth Rollins, since the moment he showed up in this company, has had something around his waist or in his arm or whatever, the Money in the Bank briefcase, Universal title gold, WWE world title gold. Now he has nothing. And I feel like that is a more dangerous Seth Rollins. We hear it all the time. Redesign, rebuild, reclaim. And that is more evident than ever come his match with Kevin Owens on Sunday.
And when does that marching mantra become a complete mental blockade between reality and Seth Rollins? You can redesign and rebuild
as many times as you want, but if you cannot come up and reclaim that title time and again, and you keep losing it, you're just going to be a 4-time, 5-time, 6-time loser.
That's exactly
and that's
it.
what's going to define him going forward. So there's a certain point when creating turns on you, and you now are the monster that you have created, and you can't move forward. So it'll be interesting to see what happens built out of the frustration that Seth Rollins has been going through. And speaking on frustration, Rusev is currently fuming with frustration towards General Manager Mick Foley for the way that he has allowed Roman Reigns almost free opportunity at the United States title without seemingly having a clear reason or justification as to why Roman Reigns deserves a U.S. title shot. Do you have any insight as to why Roman Reigns might deserve the U.S. title shot right now?
Well, as soon as you said that, the first thing that came to mind was, well, he did beat Rusev one-on-one on the Raw before SummerSlam. We're going back a while now, about 5 or 6 weeks, so it's been a while. But he does own a victory over the United States champion. That said, what we saw after that then came to my mind while you were still talking was the fact that the last time we saw these two in the ring together, back at SummerSlam, Rusev was dominated by Roman Reigns. He was just obliterated by the big dog. And in what world should that be? Should his actions be justified in giving him a U.S. championship match? So I absolutely agree. I cannot think of one thing that Roman Reigns has done since that point in time that has earned him a championship victory. Yes, he did beat the Universal Champion on Monday's Raw in non-title action inside the steel cage, but that was after they already announced the match for Sunday's show. He already technically, quote-unquote, earned a title opportunity at Rusev. So I'm still struggling to figure that out, but I feel like the overall bigger picture is whether Roman Reigns, a lot like Seth Rollins, a lot like a Shield stablemate on Sunday, he has a lot of things to live up to. Can he take home the United States Championship against Rusev, who has been absolutely unstoppable since reclaiming that championship back at Extreme Rules?
You know, I feel that in a way, Rusev is taunting and challenging anyone in the WWE Universe to take that title away from him so he can be free of the burden of carrying it, so he can be laser focused on the Universal title, which I think he wants more than anything. I think he sees the United States Championship as a toy to taunt other United States territory babyface champion would-be champions, to let them know that they cannot touch Rusev. But in a way, it's almost like he's begging somebody to come along and just take it off of his hands so that he doesn't have to be bothered with carrying the responsibility of focusing on that anymore, and he can focus himself on the next big thing. Because I think for Roman Reigns, the guy, he is very much focused on making an impact on Rusev, not necessarily going after the United States Championship. I've seen Roman Reigns interact more in a personal way with Rusev than I've seen Roman Reigns interact with a lot of his opponents. Really trying to get under Rusev's skin. For what reason, I'm not sure, but it does throw Rusev off his game, and it does make him question whether or not carrying this United States Championship anymore is truly worth his time. You know, and certainly he's not just going to give it up, especially without a fight. And he will fight to retain it, no matter what. I'm sure he would rather carry that on and collect the Universal title and just start racking up everything he can get his hands on. So with Roman Reigns just being a complete workhorse for the WWE and on Raw, constantly being put in the main event, constantly being put in steel cage matches, opening the show, closing the show, you know, we see a lot of Roman Reigns. I think that puts a wear and tear on him that Rusev doesn't even have to approach. Rusev certainly doesn't have to go out there and make speeches at the beginning of shows. He comes out and reacts to people that have to go out there and do things like that, because he's not just going to sit around and take it. And I'm sitting here trying to defend the actions of Rusev, which I don't want to be doing. I think he's going to focus on Roman Reigns' back like he does with most of his opponents, and he's going to try to get Roman Reigns to tap out. He's going to try to put him in that accolade, and that's going to be his go-to move. A couple super kicks here and there, and we'll see what he does. But Roman Reigns has got that figured out. So I feel like they're very well evenly matched, and I think it's going to be a real clash of brutal personalities that we see versus Roman Reigns versus Rusev. I want to feel like Roman Reigns, having had a shot at the Universal title and having had all of this, these different types of matches thrust on him, a match against Kevin Owens in a steel cage, which he won. says a lot for him, but I think it says a lot more for the fact that he's got to be exhausted, more exhausted than Rusev. And I want to say that Rusev comes out on top here, even though he doesn't need to.
I think when you say that they're evenly matched, I would agree in terms of their same skill sets.
Yes.
But Rusev has two things that Roman Reigns does not. Obviously, the United States Championship, but also someone that we have yet to mention, Lana, who has been an important factor in Rusev's success thus far, since the start, but especially in recent months, getting married twice for some reason in Bulgaria and here in the United States. But she's helped him retain that title time and time again against the likes of Mark Henry, Zack Ryder, Cesaro, Kalisto, Titus O'Neil. The list goes on and on and on. Roman Reigns is eons above all those people I just mentioned. So will he pose the same threat? And like I said, Roman Reigns has proven before he can beat Rusev. But can he do it with the title on the line is really the question here.
And Roman Reigns in the past however many title shots that he's had has not come up with that belt at any recent time. But he's been toiling away at it. And he's going to look back on the game that he has been playing, and it's going to be a well-fought victory if he can pull off a win against Rusev this Sunday.
Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns, I never thought I would say this, or at least in a long time to come, have something in common. Both men have embarked on roads to redemption. Seth Rollins, as we talked about, coming up short time and time again. Roman Reigns, ever since losing the WWE World Championship at Money in the Bank back in June, 3 months ago at this point, has fallen short at Battleground. He fell, technically the match never really happened at SummerSlam, but still, he fell short of winning the Universal Championship 8 days later on Raw. Roman Reigns, ever since being suspended, has had something to prove. Get back that top spot. He calls himself the guy. Not really so much anymore because he knows he's not the guy. The guy is either Rusev, who has championship gold, or Kevin Owens, who is the owner of the Kevin Owens Show right now.
Yeah,
so
Universal Champion, Kevin Owens Show, the main event.
And then Roman Reigns is not at that level, but he can be at that level if he beats Rusev at Clash of Champions.
Toil away, as long as he keeps on this path and stays healthy, the hard work will pay off. And he's earning it every single time he walks out there, to mixed crowd reactions, to whatever gets thrown his way. He's smirking through it, he's getting through it, and he's coming up in the main event all the time. So if that's not progress, I don't know what is. And I'm going to give the nod here to Roman Reigns as a victor on Sunday. But I certainly feel like it could go either way.
I'll stick with my guns and say Rusev just because of Lana. Like I said, I feel like
Lana too, yeah.
We have not really seen too much of Lana, and I feel like she might play some sort of factor in the finish to their match at Clash of Champions. But it could very well go either way, so I'm looking forward to seeing who wins.
We have even more champions. Every championship is on the line, and I'm personally excited to see the matchup between the New Day and Gallows and Anderson. I think this has been a long time coming for both of them. They've clearly been at each other's throats for a number of weeks, starting off playfully and then getting more grave and serious down the line here. What are your thoughts on the ability for New Day, being tag team champions as long as they have now, to continue their reign as champions going forward against a new threat like Gallows and Anderson? It
is incredible to me because I feel like every single time we sit here and we talk about what's coming up, previewing the upcoming shows, who's going to win the tag team title match, whoever New Day is facing, is almost always my prediction. I feel like it's time they're going to lose to so-and-so. They're going to lose to the next big thing. And they never do. Like you said, they have been champions, which is an amazing accolade this day in this day and age. Pre-brand split, post-brand split, Raw tag team titles, WWE tag team titles, World tag team titles. It doesn't matter what you call it, what time period it is. They've held those championships for almost 400 days, which is absolutely unprecedented. They have beat the club before. The club has beaten them before. They've exchanged victories time and time again. But have they really faced anyone not quite like Gallows and Anderson, but this version of Gallows and Anderson? Not the good doctors. They're kind of like you said, the comedy, the comic relief, the playful characters. This badassery that is Gallows and Anderson, what we saw in the Bullet Club many years ago over in New Japan, this is the Gallows and Anderson that I want to see as tag team champions. Not wearing the doctor coats and stuff like that, the lab coats. This is the Gallows and Anderson. I feel like they are capable of taking home the tag team titles and beating the New Day, being the team that finally beats New Day at Clash of Champions.
I have to agree that this is the best threat to the New Day, my absolute favorite groups of talent and entertainment in WWE that I've ever seen. This is their biggest challenge to date. And I'm going to stick with the New Day on this and feel like they have a game plan going into this, that they are a little bit more experienced and intelligent at what the club could throw at them. But certainly Gallows and Anderson come with a complete arsenal of experience that the New Day is completely unaware of. And that is what is so dangerous about a group like Gallows and Anderson, who can get under the New Day's skin and play their own game and have some fun in games with the New Day, but also be dangerously serious in the ring, which sometimes the New Day lose focus on during a match and start pandering to the crowd mid-match. And it will cost them a moment if they take that moment to acknowledge the audience during their title match. That could cost them the win.
Definitely. New Day is at their best when they're focused, when they're poised, when they're serious, and we could see that on Sunday. It really depends. You don't know what you're getting with New Day until that event arrives. And Sunday's Clash of Champions could be an entirely different story. It's a different story. We talk about Gallows and Anderson being more serious and more focused now than they have been ever since they arrived in WWE. But with New Day at SummerSlam, it was Xavier Woods and Kofi defending the titles for the team. No Big E until he obviously returned that same night. On Sunday, I think it's Kofi and Big E defending the championships, but Xavier Woods will be present at ringside. So this time, although they technically did not come out on top at SummerSlam, it was a DQ victory for Club, they have all three members of New Day in their corner. It's 3-2. AJ Styles is no longer on the Raw brand. He is not with Gallows and Anderson. It's a Raw show, so it's 2-on-3. But I don't know, my gut feeling still says that the club will find a way, whether it be through nefarious means or what have you, that they will find a way to take home those tag team titles and finally be crowned the tag team champions they should have been from the moment they arrived in WWE back in April, going back almost 5 months at this point.
Now, before we get to some of the hottest news that I have been excited to talk with you about all summer, and we've been following along, and I hope you've all been following along on the network. The Cruiserweight division has arrived on Raw. There's a lot of great competition building in the Cruiserweight division. Before we get to that, that'll be the last title that we talk about before we get into SmackDown and close out our analysis here on Clash of Champions. But we had a couple of other interesting quick little notes to mention going into Clash of Champions that I think is worth talking about. Cesaro was down 3-2 in the Best of 7 series going into his match on Raw with Sheamus. I thought he did a phenomenal job. I think the two of them are putting on some of the best display of physical professional wrestling at a very high speed and at a very intense rate that it has been a joy to see a series go on this long, to see them both healthy in a series this long, and to know that on the other side of this is a real reward for one of them. It is not just bragging rights. I thought that Cesaro matching Sheamus going into Clash of Champions makes that in itself a championship level match. To you have to know the winner of that match matters so much, knowing what could happen for the rest of the night. So having that in your back pocket and wondering which one of those two will be fighting against either Kevin Owens or Seth Rollins, pretty significant. And either Sheamus or Cesaro at this point through their Best of 7 series has proven that they could easily be contenders in a physical way against either of those two opponents.
I don't know. I'm curious because I don't know if they ever specified that it was going to be for the WWE World Championship. It could be the Universal Championship. I don't know if it's going to be for the U.S. Championship. I don't know if they ever specified what title it was going to be for, but it could. I mean, if they have
according to Cesaro,
as he said,
it should be the Universal.
Well, it should have been.
I think, but that's what. So far as what I can ascertain, that's what he believes it to be. So that's where I'm watching some of his Raw Fallout.
Okay, same
moments
same.
And some of the pre-show moments. They've kind of highlighted that that's what this match would lead to.
Okay,
and hopefully, in a perfect scenario, in my mind, this is Cesaro's backdoor of hard work to get him in front of the line without having to get involved in all the politics that we were talking about surrounding the Universal title picture, whether it's Roman Reigns hovering around and Rusev hovering around and Seth Rollins hovering around. This could be Cesaro's way to circumvent all of it through hard work and beating the tar out of Sheamus to get right in front of the Universal Champion and potentially pull the biggest upset of all time.
It's almost like a fall version of the Royal Rumble where the winner gets... I would love to see them get a championship opportunity of their choosing, in which they get to choose what title they go. I mean, otherwise, I mean, that said, it wouldn't make sense if they had the opportunity to go for the WWE Universal Championship and they go for the Star Spangled Prize U.S. title instead. So I guess it could go either way. This is just totally fantasy booking, just some random thoughts and stuff. It would be cool if they had the opportunity to go to any championship. Like I said, Cesaro has said, as you have said as well, on Raw Fallout, that it's likely going to be for the WWE Universal Championship, which would be great. Cesaro versus Owens, Cesaro Rollins, Sheamus Owens, so on and so forth. But could we see him jump to SmackDown, go after the WWE World Championship against AJ Styles? Could we see something a lot like the Cruiserweight Classic? Mick Foley said initially it would be for a title opportunity. Maybe on Sunday before the bout, we see something similar with TJ Perkins, Gran Metalik, and Triple H, where Mick Foley comes out with an all-new championship. Maybe the return of the European Championship between two Europeans and Sheamus and Cesaro. I don't know. That's just the mark in me talking here. But again, just bottom line, best of 7 series. First time in over 10 years since Chris Benoit and Booker T on the SmackDown brand for the United States Championship. It's been a great series of matches. Each bout has told a different story. Sunday, it should be the best barn burner of a bout we've seen up to this point. And it really could go either way. Like you said, Sheamus, a former 4-time WWE champion. This will be an upset. Cesaro winning is not a foregone conclusion, people. This could be very evenly matched, as Tom said, just because Sheamus being a former 4-time WWE champion, at this time last year, a WWE champion on the Raw brand. Cesaro, a former United States champion, tag team champion. He does not have those same accolades that Sheamus does. So in beating Sheamus, coming out from underneath, coming back 3-0 in the earlier on in the series would be a massive upset for the Swiss Superman.
It certainly would, and Sheamus certainly has the skill set to get a win over Cesaro, which he's done in this series already. But I think Cesaro certainly has fought back and proven that he wants it more deep down inside for himself. So I'm pulling for Cesaro on this. He's the only top babyface that they have right now that could possibly put a dent in every one of in the armor of everyone else in the main event picture right now. Cesaro could be that dent in the armor that completely shatters it and gets him the Universal Championship. So that, in due time, that is what I would love to see for the Swiss Superman Cesaro. I'd love for him to have the validation to literally change up everything he wants to change up, whether it be his music, whether it be his attire, whether it be his entire demeanor, mic time, all of it. Give him a shot by letting him show what he's worth and dent the armor of all the top players that they have going right now. I think that's great. In a completely other light, and I know we're up against time a little bit here, before we get to the Cruiserweights one more time, we have something brewing in the background that we should acknowledge and move on with. But Bo Dallas has now come out for the 3rd week in a row, squashing people left and right in a very different, more methodically unsettling way. Bo has been making a new presence for himself, and I think that by Bo leaving and only himself, it is starting to poison his mind a little bit, and he is certainly taking it out on all the wrong people that don't necessarily deserve that kind of focus. So whether Mick Foley is feeding these to Bo to build character for him, not sure if it's actually working or working against him, but we will see what happens with Bo Dallas going forward. It's going to be very interesting to see where his psychotic brain is leading him these days.
He's not currently on tap for Clash of Champions, but it wouldn't surprise me to see him make an appearance come Sunday, whether it be to make an immediate statement versus a Raw superstar or another enhancement talent. The man that brought shame to the name of Graham on Monday, Gary Graham, falling short of beating Bo Dallas. But I don't know.
Maybe he just comes out for a victory lap. You never know.
You never know.
He's losing it.
I'm starting to believe in Bo again. These recent string of victories have kind of turned the tides in terms of Bo Dallas. Not the same social outcast, fun-loving Bo Dallas that we saw many months ago. This is a completely different Bo Dallas. So I might start to believe in Bo Dallas going forward.
It's interesting. He just kind of like captivates you in this way you can't look away. So it'll be interesting to see. Without further ado, since we are up against the clock and we definitely need to spend at least a moment of time here talking about the Cruiserweights here. On Monday night at 10:15, WWE launched for the first time its Cruiserweight division, and it was spectacular. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't rehearsed to death. It looked natural, and it looked like a debut, and I really loved it for that. And I think that, just running through the names really quickly, Rich Swann, Grand Metalik, the crown jewel of Lucha Libre, Cedric Alexander, the Brian Kendrick, and TJ Perkins, who did not make an appearance on Raw, but will be defending his Cruiserweight Championship that he won at the Cruiserweight Classic against the Brian Kendrick. Surprising win. I was not expecting that. I was not expecting Brian Kendrick to come out on top of that match, but in the end, I'm not surprised. And when you watch the way that he played that match, who was the first person to roll out of the ring and have nothing to do with being part of that Cruiserweight display of talent and sheer high-flying ability, Brian Kendrick took a Kevin Owens approach, rolled under the bottom rope, and let the people in the ring start the match. And I think that is why he came out on top, because he saw the flaws, he saw where people were spending too much time on their posture or position, and took advantage. What do you think?
Well, they don't call him the man with the plan for no reason. They call him that for a reason. It's because the guy's a seasoned vet. He has been wrestling for almost 18 years. TJ Perkins has said it time and time again in the CWC. He's been wrestling since he was 12, 13, something like that. He's been wrestling for a long time. Kendrick has been wrestling for just as long, if not longer. Mick Foley said it himself, you heard him, one of, before the New Day, the longest reigning WWE Tag Team Champions of all time. This guy has been there. He's been to the mountaintop and back. He had a great showing in the CWC, nearly defeated Kodai Ibushi, one of the best bouts I've seen in 2016. And like you said, my money was on Cedric Alexander, maybe a Rich Swann win on Monday, but at the same time, it didn't surprise me. Brian Kendrick is a seasoned vet. He has been there before. He will be there again, and he's going to face his toughest opposition to date in TJ Perkins. I was slightly disappointed. As you said, I was very happy that the debut went off of the Cruiserweights without a hitch on Monday. The only thing that I was questioning, that I wasn't really overly satisfied with, was the fact, and I'm sure you saw it as well, the face-to-face confrontation between TJ Perkins and Brian Kendrick backstage on Raw Fallout immediately after the show. Great stuff. TJ Perkins talking about winning the CWC, facing Kendrick on Sunday's show. Kendrick comes up, refuses to shake his hand. So Kendrick, this fun-loving guy that we've seen before that you really want to rally behind, he said he was talking about in his sit-down interview with Michael Cole this past week, his 2009 release from this company. It's really been a road to redemption for Kendrick, but at the same time, he shows no respect to the quote-unquote newcomers to the WWE, the TJ Perkins, the Cedric Alexanders of the world. He's been here before, and he's back to prove that he is going to be the Cruiserweight champion again.
It seems to be that selfish streak that gets you to the top in the WWE, unfortunately. But TJ Perkins sits up at the top right now, and I couldn't think of a better champion to hold the Cruiserweight belt and represent that belt with a lot of class than TJ Perkins right now. So I'm going to give the nod to TJ Perkins retaining and staying on top of the Cruiserweight division to start things off with the Cruiserweights.
Sorry, go ahead.
No. I just think that it's going to be a focused match for both of them.
Definitely.
And high flying could expose certain weaknesses, and we'll see how that shapes the Cruiserweight division going forward, because we have just as many technical wrestlers as you do have flying and grappling.
Well, Kendrick has said before, he said in that aforementioned Michael Cole sit-down interview this past week, he's like, TJ Perkins, his whole thing is that he was homeless. He said half the guys in the locker room were homeless. I was homeless at one point. That really doesn't make a difference. I've done exactly what TJ Perkins has done. I've been there before. I've accomplished all the same things and then some. He's traveled the world a lot like Perkins has. And I don't know, Kendrick on Monday, he proved that bully choke of his. We've known him to do the Kendrick in the past, the sliced bread number 2, but that bully choke of his is vicious. And I think once he locks Perkins in that, it's ball game. It's over. It's done. So I think we do crown a new Cruiserweight champion 2 weeks into TJ Perkins' reign in the form of Kendrick at Clash of Champions.
Well, it has been a fantastic set of matches that we have in front of us. I'm very excited to see who comes out on top, where our predictions land, and I certainly hope that at the end of the day, we see a lot of belts being retained, because I think that's where a lot of my thoughts lay. I want to see New Day retain. I want to see TJ Perkins retain. And against my better judgment, I want to see Kevin Owens retain. Charlotte, I will begrudgingly say, I think she is poised to retain. And I think that
the Bulgarian Brute
Rusev certainly has all the skills and the support within Lana to retain as well. So will we see a clean sweep of retain titles at Clash of Champions? Time will tell. But we'll be back right after this with a full and quick analysis of SmackDown and NXT right here on Next Era Wrestling Radio. All right, and we are back here on Next Era Wrestling Radio. You are listening to the dulcet tones of Boston's own Look Sharp, the best band in Boston, self-proclaimed. You can catch them at Kamikaze in Somerville and Davis Square and online at looksharp.bandcamp.com. Find them on Spotify and iTunes. SmackDown this week. We're going to go through this real quick. We're going to just blast through match by match because we spent a lot of our time today focused on giving you a Clash of Champions review, and we will be doing this on Fridays. Our show is now, used to be on Thursdays, focused on NXT and SmackDown. It's a new era. We are now focusing on all things front to end, WWE, and especially with our very intense, very jam-packed calendar of network exclusive events and pay-per-views, if you will. We will be providing full front-to-end coverage for those matches, first thing that you hear right here on Next Era Wrestling Radio. So that will take up the majority of our time for weeks like this. So we will quickly get through a highlight reel of what you saw on SmackDown and NXT this week, starting off with Dean Ambrose versus John Cena. That was a very interesting bout. And just to jump right to the conclusion, Dean Ambrose got a clean win over John Cena, who was stunned. And that was a very physical match on both their parts. An absolute slugfest. Thoughts?
Well, first of all, I love Raw. Raw's good. I love SmackDown, though. We talked a lot about SmackDown last semester, and it's a shame we don't have much time to talk about it today. We will talk more about it next week to kind of make up for it. Clash of Champions is Sunday. But in terms of Ambrose and Cena, really good main event. I really felt the overall episode that No Mercy came early. You had a great IC title match, a great contract signing, some other really good matches, capped off by an amazing main event between John Cena, Dean Ambrose, a match that we have not seen much of in the last couple of years. Ambrose scoring a definitive victory. No cheating, no real dirty deeds, for lack of a better term, over John Cena, scoring a clean victory over the self-proclaimed face that runs the place in the main event that will build him momentum, that will give him the momentum he needs to go up against AJ Styles one-on-one next week for the WWE World Championship.
That's right, and those are the types of interesting stipulations that we are now starting to come to expect from SmackDown. Things that actually matter, match to match, are causing consequences and ripples throughout the entire locker room, and matches are being created that have sincere stakes behind them, so champions are basically put on notice that there is no days off when you are a champion on the SmackDown side of the WWE. So I think that is amazing, but SmackDown kicked off with a women's contract signing, which Daniel Bryan claimed would not get out of hand and quickly went awry. But this was between Becky Lynch and number one contender Alexa Bliss, who showed absolutely no respect towards Becky Lynch, but Becky Lynch quickly put Alexa Bliss right in her place. And I felt that Becky delivering that type of a promo showed the sincerity in which she carries her title around with. And I just can't imagine that Alexa's ready to put up with the intensity and the sheer strength that Becky brings to the table.
Just a really, really good back and forth. Alexa Bliss, I'm sure there's a clip on YouTube. I know I put it up there many months ago when we first started WWEC Radio. Alexa Bliss being just an absolute star, and she shared it on Tuesday. Becky Lynch is always good. That's really been a well-known fact for a while now. Alexa Bliss really standing her own in that war of words with the last kicker on Tuesday night. And I wanted to bring this up to you, Tom, because I know we talked about this at length a while ago. The Harley Quinn comparisons. So I want to get your thoughts on that, because I know they kind of toned it down. And we spoke right before Backlash, I think. And then they really started heating it up again at Backlash. She was wearing the colors, wearing the hair and that. I know we don't have much time, but I did want to get your 2 cents on that, because I know they really kind of hammed it up in the last couple of weeks.
For me, I don't understand the comparison in any way whatsoever. I maybe in a loose visual aesthetic way, I can understand them trying to make a comparison to the character Harley Quinn. Harley Quinn is a very detailed, methodical, menacing, and downright disturbing type of a character when it comes to what Harley Quinn is. Now, Harley Quinn has evolved a lot in the DC universe, especially through DC Rebirth right now, and is definitely bringing out more of a shine in her character. But Alexa Bliss is a focused, very thought-through wrestler, and all of the bells and whistles almost do not even matter to her. The show is Alexa Bliss. The accents are whatever she needs to do to go out there and stand out and be visual. But I don't see it in impacting her anyway. She could come out in a singlet. She could come out in a t-shirt. It wouldn't take away from what Alexa Bliss brings to the ring when she walks down that ramp, clenches her fist with her Terminator Freddy Krueger hand, and points at her challenger and scares the death out of them. So I just don't see how Harley Quinn, a completely erratic type of character that can barely stay focused on one thing from moment to moment, has anything to do with where Alexa Bliss's mind is at, because the only place Alexa Bliss is focused right now is laser focused on Becky Lynch's WWE Women's Championship. So I think that because of all of that focus, because of what she brings to the ring when she goes down there, Alexa Bliss is the best threat against Becky Lynch right now in the women's division. Nikki and Naomi are certainly contenders, but they are busy with their own personal feuds right now. So Alexa Bliss has to be the most focused runaway candidate to take that title off of Becky Lynch and send her right back to the underdog position. So time will tell. I think Becky Lynch has the strength and momentum going in here, and I think that she deserves to hang on to that belt for a good long while.
Could not agree more. She's been a real contender in the SmackDown Women's division ever since this division was created at the dawn of the brand split many months ago. And it's going to be interesting to see how she fares against Becky Lynch come No Mercy. We're still a couple weeks away, but tensions are already rising between these two former NXT graduates.
And other quick highlights here. The Miz got away with murder against Dolph Ziggler, spraying some kind of hairspray, some kind of product into the eyes of Dolph Ziggler that Maurice left behind when she was kicked out of the match for a clean victory, if you want to call it a clean victory. And Dolph Ziggler, once again, comes up with a loss. Unfortunately, not necessarily by his own design, but that is not what it reads like online.
His wins again, yeah.
But I have nothing but respect and admiration for Dolph Ziggler. He has gone out there time and again to prove that he is a wrestler, only to have these absolute inconsistencies take it all away from him at the last minute. We also had Randy Orton versus Eric Rowan with a special ending guest of Bray Wyatt popping his head up into the match. Randy Orton made quick work of Eric Rowan there, which was great to see. That Randy Orton is every bit of the Viper that he is, and that there is absolutely no concern over his alleged health issues, whatever they may be. But his feud with Bray Wyatt continues, and that will be interesting to see how that plays out, as well as AJ Styles. And the silver lining in what AJ Styles is building is that he really has no support on SmackDown. Without the club anywhere near him, AJ Styles does not make friends. So with all of these people in SmackDown, whether it be Dean Ambrose, whether it be John Cena, whether it be Randy Orton, there are a lot of contenders that AJ Styles is simply not taking seriously enough right now, because he is on top and that's where he wants to be, and he doesn't want to think about anything else. So it'll be very interesting to see where everything goes come No Mercy, and we will be bringing you a full episode of coverage, much like we did right now. We didn't get enough time today to get through all of NXT, but the highlights here is that Nakamura was taken out in an ambulance 2 weeks ago, and Samoa Joe came out to address that situation, to call out Regal and demand that he either be given the title belt or given a match as soon as possible. But General Manager Regal was able to push that decision off for at least another week to take care of, quote, the problem that you caused, I will take care of. William Regal said that on Wednesday. And Joe claims a full assault on the entire roster of NXT unless Regal agrees to give him a title match. That is a bold statement. So with everything going on and a couple of new people popping up in NXT all the time, it is as exciting as it's always been, including a main event match between Cedric Alexander and Andrade Cien. Fantastic match. Cedric comes out with the win. Huge pop. Absolutely loved it. Much like I absolutely loved kicking off Next Era Wrestling Radio with you today, Graham. It was an absolute pleasure. We will be back next Friday with full analysis coverage of Raw, SmackDown, and NXT. You can expect full results to be divulged after Clash of Champions. We will go through everything, and we will be sure to bring you even more time to fit in
all of this good wrestling news. I'm Tommy Sharp. This is Graham GSM Matthews. We'll see you after Clash of Champions.